The first major modification to my 2017 Toyota 4Runner is about to begin. In today's video, I want to talk about my plans for lifting the vehicle and give you a look at the lift kit that I just received. Now, before I get to the lift kit, let me talk a little bit about my personal situation. My wife and I have 2 kids and we've got 3 vehicles. We have a 2018 Volkswagen e-Golf that's our main commuter vehicle. We use that for most of our day-to-day driving around town. Anytime we're going somewhere as a family and the weather's okay, that's the vehicle that we take. We've got a Tacoma that we use for work purposes, and then I've also got it for the YouTube channel, featured heavily here. And then we've got the 2017 4Runner, which is kind of our family vehicle. So when we've got snow or ice on the roads, this is what we're gonna use to get around. And if we go on a family trip outside of the city limits, this is what we're gonna be using for going over the mountains. And so is kind of the primary family vehicle. And so I wanted to really keep that in mind with the lift kit on the vehicle. And I ranged anywhere from going with just a basic leveling kit, maybe even just leaving the suspension the way it was, all the way up to like a 3-inch lift and putting 285s on it. As much as I like the look of a 3-inch kit with 285s, I just decided, since this is our family vehicle, I didn't want to hurt the fuel economy that much, the ride quality, and I didn't want to make it difficult for my wife to get into the vehicle and to get our 2 young kids in. And so I decided going with the 3-inch kit would be too much. Did want to level it out a little bit. I'm not crazy about how the front end of the vehicle really sits quite a bit lower than the rear. It's got quite a rake on it. And so I decided to go with just a mild leveling kit, lift up the front end and leave the rear of the vehicle at its stock height. I already mentioned that I've got a 2016 Tacoma that's prominently featured on the channel, and a couple years ago I put a lift kit on that vehicle as well. And it was actually my first experience lifting a vehicle, and I found it to be a very overwhelming process. For starters, there's so many different lift kits out there to choose from, so many different types of lift kits. You've got spacers, you've got really high-end lift kits, you've got a lot of options in the middle, and then it's also hard to know if a specific lift kit is going to fit your vehicle. And so it was a very overwhelming process. I scoured the internet, I was on all kinds of forums, blogs, websites, and it took a lot of time to land on the solution that I ended up with for the Tacoma. Now, there was one website in particular that I heavily used with the Tacoma, found it to be a very useful resource. So when it came time to searching for the 4Runner, that was the first place that I went, and it really simplified the process of choosing a kit for the 4Runner. It's called BilsteinLifts.com, and it's a website that has a specific focus on Toyota vehicles, but they actually serve a variety of different makes and models. Really cool website, as I mentioned. You can go to it, you can choose your make, you can choose your model, and then you can choose your specific generation, and it will give you a list of lift kits, front, rear, all kinds of other parts as well, specific to your vehicle. So really great. It really takes all that guesswork out of trying to decide what's going to fit your vehicle. And then they've also got such a wide selection of different options. You've got the really cheap options, you've got really expensive options, and everything in the middle. So a really great website. I actually reached out to them, told them a little bit about who I was, and they gave me a coupon code that you guys can use for your purchases on BilsteinLifts.com with the coupon code MikeC. So go check it out. I'll put a link to the website in the description below. When it came time to choose a suspension setup for the 4Runner, I was really tempted by some of the high-end options that are out there. But ultimately, this is a family vehicle for us. It's going to do most of its driving in town on paved roads, on highways. We'll see a little bit of mild off-roading, but nothing that intense, and I didn't feel like it'd be worth the money to buy a really high-end setup. My Tacoma, on the other hand, has a very basic lift kit. I've got a 2-inch rough country spacer in the front and a 1-inch Toy-Tech block in the rear, and while it's performed just fine for me in the time that I've had it, I've always felt like I should have gone with a slightly better suspension setup. So when it came time to choosing something for the 4Runner, I landed right in the middle with a set of Bilstein 5100s. So these are the Bilstein 5100s. We've got 2 shocks for the front, 2 shocks for the rear. If you're not familiar with the 5100 setup, it's a really popular option within the Toyota community and a really good overall value. It's a nice improvement over the stock suspension that you have on the 4Runner. It's a much better setup than what you're going to get with just a basic spacer on the vehicle. And again, it's a lot more affordable than going with some of the better higher end options that are out there. One thing you'll notice about this setup is that you get just the shock, so no coils included with the front suspension. The way that that works is that you actually remove the shocks and coils that you've got existing on the 4Runner, use a spring compressor to compress the front coils, and then you reuse those with the shocks that we've got up front. The other thing cool about the 5100s is that they're height adjustable, so you can adjust them anywhere from just leaving the vehicle at stock height up to 2.5 inches in the front and 2 inches in the rear. And so a nice thing about that is that you can buy the vehicle with the intent of lifting to a certain height. If you don't like the way that it rides, you've got some flexibility to raise or lower it. The other nice thing about that is that, as I mentioned, my current situation right now, we've got 2 young kids. We don't want to raise the vehicle too high, but down the road, if we wanted to lift it a little bit higher, we've got a setup that we can reuse and lift the vehicle higher. So it's really nice having some of that flexibility built in. Now with the rear suspension, to lift the vehicle, you can't actually do it directly with the 5100s. The 5100s will give you kind of the range that you need to lift the vehicle, but if you actually want to lift the rear end of the 4Runner, you either need to buy a spacer setup or you need to replace the existing stock coils on the vehicle. Now, as much as I would have loved to go with a 3-inch lift kit and a set of 285s, we already established that this is primarily a family vehicle. I want to maintain that better fuel economy, ride quality. I want my wife to be able to get loaded into the vehicle with our 2 young kids without a problem. And so I don't want to go too aggressive with the lift kit. I actually think the 4Runner sits pretty good overall at its stock height with its stock tire wheel setup. But it always looks better when you put bigger ones on there. So the plan for the vehicle is actually to leave the rear end of the vehicle sitting at stock height, and then I'm going to lift up the front end to level it out. Technically, to level out the 5100s, you put it on the second clip, which is just under 2 inches. But from what I've read, putting it 2 inches in the front will probably result in a sag at the rear anytime that you have passengers in the vehicle, any cargo, if you're doing any towing. And so I think that what I'm probably going to do is actually put it on the first setting up front, so it's got just a little bit of a rake, so if it's loaded up, it will sit level. So not a very dramatic change to go just about an inch up front, but I think that it's going to look pretty good. I've done quite a bit of searching online to see how that looks on the 4Runners. I think it's going to look really good. And then I've also got a set of aftermarket wheels and upgraded tires on the way. So I think once I get the lift kit on there and the revised set of wheels and tires, it's going to look really good. I am planning to do the installation myself and hoping to put together a video of that as well. So stay tuned for more videos on the 4Runner. Be sure to subscribe. In the meantime, thanks for watching.